My parents, Marie and Jack, have been married for 55 years. They have 5 children and 8 grandchildren. My mother, Marie Barber, was born in 1932. She spent the first few years of her life in Kingston, Pennsylvania, and then at age 7 moved to Scranton, where she lived the rest of her young life before moving to Buffalo to raise our family. Scranton in the early 30s was a coal mining town, and to this day the effects of strip mining dot the landscape. At that time, her dad, my grandfather, suffered from alcoholism, so her mom and dad would need to separate from time to time. Then in 1940, my mother's one and only sister, Betty Lou, was born. She remembers taking care of her sister by putting towels in the bathtub, creating a makeshift crib, then heading to the front of the house where she worked selling beer, cigarettes, and candy in a storefront deli attached to the house. Her mom would go to the snowsuit factory in downtown Scranton. Her first memories of her dad were during the Scranton-Wilkes-Barre flood in 1936.
We had a flood in Pennsylvania. I was 4 years old. We sat on the cellar steps and moved up as the water came up. And then I went to bed that night. The next morning I was taken off the roof of the front porch in a rowboat and sent up to my Aunt Marie's. That's really the first memory I have about my father, I think, being with him during the flood, and I was 4 years old then. A classmate of his, this Father Roach, one time was sent to the parish that we belonged to. And when he looked up the names, he saw my father's name, Martin Barber, and he realized she grew up with him in his neighborhood. So he decided to come up and see my father. So he came up in the afternoon, and the priest's nickname was Mercy. So he sat down, my dad talked to him, and he said, "Marty, how long have you been drinking, And he had about 6 quart bottles. He used to drink quarts. And he said, "Oh, I'm only up about 3 hours." Well, the priest near died. But he had many fine qualities also, my father, He was the first salesman that sold beach nut baby food to the company, to the world. He had a lovely job with Beach Nut Packing Company. Well, then he lost the job. And then he went and worked on the railroad. And when I was 8 years old, I was making my first communion. And they told me anything I wished for, I would get. And those days, I didn't know my mother was pregnant in May, and Betty Lou was born in August. The answer to my prayers, my baby sister. And I named her. I don't know where I got the name from, but I named her Elizabeth Louise. We called her Betty Lou. But see, I'm 8 years older than her. So she didn't have as many memories of the hard times, but they weren't all hard times. I mean, it certainly turned out great, and I was just one never to sit and cry about it or, life goes on. We moved from Kingston up to Scranton, and they opened up the store. 2 women gave my mother the store. They retired. And we lived in an apartment upstairs, but then we moved 2 doors away into the homestead, the house my grandfather built. And Betty and Margaret's and Hazel's mother and father lived there, but they moved out and moved to Dunmore, so we were able to move into that house. And then she opened a store in that house. She was funny. She took things easy, she was a terrific cook. But she made dinner, then she went in the room and read the paper, and Betty Lou and I'd have to do all the dishes. She dirtied every dish, pot and pan, She was very relaxed. And when I started dating Jack, one time Father Bill, we were very close to him, came up, and my mother's reading the magazine and chewing Flair's bubble gum. Oh, and Father Cusick said, "Hazel, I have beach nut gum." "No, I don't want it," she said. I love bubble gum. She was a funny lady, and everybody loved her.
My grandfather, Patrick Cusick, was born in 1883 and was a decorated World War I hero, and according to my father, a man of few words. Following the war, he moved back to Scranton and went to work for the Packard Car Company as a mechanic. My father recalls how he would hop the trolley car and head downtown from the west side of Scranton.
He was a good guy, and he was very disciplined, but when he spoke, you listened. He never got a crack. He was a very good disciplinarian, verbally. And whatever he said, you did. Yeah. But he was very calm and good guy. He was awarded the Purple Heart. He got shrapnel in his legs, and he absorbed a little of the mustard gas they had in the war. That ended up, he suffered with that later on in life. But he won the Silver Star for bravery. I don't know what he did, but he didn't talk about it. And he was the most decorated soldier in World War I in northeastern Pennsylvania. And that was quite a medal he got, so he was proud of that. But he didn't talk about how he got it, or I don't know if he went after what did they call them, dugouts or everything, shot a couple of guys with bayonet. So, but it was not a conversation that he enjoyed talking about. He was very active with the American Legion, and he partook in that. Played cards there once in a while. They used to have a card game, I think, every Saturday night at the Legion. He'd go there, but that was his activity. And bowling, in the bowling season, he liked to bowl. And Mom was a good cook, good housekeeper, and always wore an apron. She always had an apron on. She was a housewife, a real housewife. Cleaned, did the wash every Monday. That was the only day they did wash in those days, was Monday. They hung them on the line, no dryers. The good old days.
High school was always a fun time as dad. So there were dances. We went to basketball games and different things.
I had a great time at the high school. I went to a nice small school, and we had 29 in our graduating class, 7 boys. So it was interesting. I enjoyed high school very much, and enjoyed all the activities that we had. But I got a job when I was 10 years old, working after school and on Saturdays. I held that job till I was 19 at Canterbury's Market, and I learned everything about the grocery store. And as I recall it, the most I made working every day and on Saturdays was $5 a week, but that was good, pretty good money. I started probably for $2, and I worked up to $5. But I was happy, and I did that all through my grade school and high school at Canterbury's. I left them when I was 19, which was a mistake at that time, and I look back. I went and worked for a wholesale butcher, and then I went into service. It was one way to get out of that job. But, and that was, that was eventful, 4 years. And then we went to the University of Scranton. I was going nights, and I met Marie in the accounting department. That's where we were taking courses together. And like I say, I knew her. She knew me.
Well, I knew him, like you said, we knew one another, but then we were in the same class at the University of Scranton. And I worked for a company that owned theaters, and one of the men there asked if I wanted 2 tickets to Notre Dame. And I had no way to go, so I asked Dad if he'd like tickets to Notre Dame.
And Notre Dame played Pennsylvania that year, down in Franklin Field. And we had a great time, but she didn't come. She came to me.
But as long as he went to the game, then he felt he should take me out on Sunday night. I don't know if he's in shape to do it or not, but I had a long weekend. So that was our first date.
So after that, I started dating her. And one thing led to another, and we kept dating for quite a while. Finally, she married me. We got married, and we didn't have a dime. to rub together. But it was fun. I did have a job that I figured I was going to do well at, and I was going to stay with it. And I did. That's why I took the job up here in Buffalo. The rest is history. It worked out very well.
I cried for 6 months. Hated it. I was just basically lonesome. If it wasn't for Jimmy and Marcy Donohue, we wouldn't have stayed. They were marvelous to us, but I mean, you had family, and then you come up here and you didn't have anybody. And I was 26 years old.
I loved it from the time I got up here. Cold weather and all, snow and all. I'd do it again. I really would. I had a job, which a lot of people didn't. They were losing their jobs left and right. And the kids, I think they weathered it fine. They're born here. They knew the snow came. They knew it was cold outside, and they knew it was windy in the wintertime. They handled it. It was just, that's the way things are, you know. I think all the kids born in Buffalo are tough enough to put up with it and know that they've got that. And they spent some miserable days going to school here. It toughened the kids up. It didn't toughen Bridget up enough. She wanted to go south, and she did. And she'll never come back. But, you know, I don't think there's a better place to live than Buffalo. We got everything here. We got the 4 seasons. You don't find a better spring or a better fall than in Buffalo. I can tell you that from experience.
Very good friends of ours from Pennsylvania, Carries, their name was. They came up one October. They were here for Halloween, and it was snowing at Halloween. And maybe 10 years ago, we went down, and the little granddaughter, they said, "Do you remember Cusick?" "Oh, yeah." She said, "I was at their house," and she said it was snowing, and the leaves were still on the trees. But that's the reputation we had. But we had wonderful times in our tiny house.
We moved in here January 31st, 1961. The temperature was 10 below zero. So we've been here ever since. We couldn't afford it, but we swung it. And we've been here ever since, and it's been a great, great place. 9 months, January 25th to October 25th. Tim came along, and you came along a year later, no, 361 days later. Irish twins. 2 in 2 years, that ain't bad. We know people that have more, but that was enough for a while. Then we had Mary Beth in 1962, October 10th. In 65, we had Bridget, the 25th of December. And then we had Colleen in 1967, August 28th.
And I remember one time coming home, we had Tim out, and somebody must have been babysitting for you. And Tim went running in the bedroom to look in the crib to see the baby. But now he'll say he was wishing you weren't there. That's why he was so excited. So he was jealous.
Christmas was a big day at our house. Always had a Christmas tree, generally in that corner with the village and everything around it. No train, but we had a village with skis and ice skate ponds and stuff like that. And Marie was the decorator. All I did was put up the tree. That was it. But it was a big, big day, and kids, they didn't get everything they wanted, but what they got, they appreciated. Anything they got, and they didn't do too bad. Yeah. Oh, we had a ball. And it was a big holiday. Besides being Bridget's birthday, it was Christmas first, and then Bridget came after lunch. After supper, we had the birthday. And she appreciated it, and she loved it.
It was the Buffalo Tank Company, a division of Bethlehem Steel, that originally brought my father from Scranton to Buffalo.
I always had a white-collar job, but I was considered a blue-collar worker. I always worked in the office at Buffalo Tank, and I was a salesman on the road.
But after a long and successful career, the Buffalo steel industry died, leaving thousands out of work.
It was devastating. It was devastating for 20 years because everybody relied on it, you know? And there was so many other jobs tied into the steel industry that we don't have anymore. You know, our population is 50% of what it was during the 50s. But we still have good people. It was devastating for the people that were out of work. You can see them that they weren't working. It was devastating because their kids were moving out of town. And it's amazing the kids that are out of town in our neighborhood. And we have three out of town, and just in our family, you know. Tim's in California, Kevin's in New York, and you know, one's in South Carolina. And that's not the only thing. People around here, it's common for have relations out of town. When I was a kid, everybody lived in Scranton. That was it.
One thing that's never changed is their commitment to the church. Catholic holidays are still a time of celebration.
Most all your neighbors were Catholic. You just never thought of not going to church or anything. You went to novenas. And Easter was a big time. Holy Thursday, Good Friday, Easter. And it still is with us. Still have to practice your faith. Just couldn't live without it, I don't think.
It's what I believe in, and always have and always will be, but I was brought up in that religion, and it wasn't hammered into me, but we got enough religion in school, and the church was a popular thing in those days. Our life was around the church with different organizations and stuff, you know. Boy, I tell you, if I missed it 5 times, there's a lot. It wasn't a case of not going to church on Sunday. It was, you did it. It's given me faith and kept giving me faith. And that's what I have. I believe, you know. It's very strong. I was born in that condition. I enjoy it. I enjoy the people I've met there. Oh, there's life after. I don't know if there's a hell, but there better be a heaven.
What if there's not?
Well, we'll find that out if there isn't.
The neighborhood and their friends are the fabric of their lives. Always very social, they came to love and be loved by the friendships they formed in South Buffalo. Although they were not raised there, after nearly 55 years in the same house, they have watched and participated in family life throughout the community. They have grown deep and lasting roots. Their families and our family have become one.
Well, I think it's so community. Look at all the benefits they have if somebody's sick or in an accident. They get together, have a benefit, make a couple $1,000s, thousands of dollars for them. But we feel was like Scranton, where the neighborhoods we came from.
Oh boy, friends are the best thing you can have. And we've got a lot of them. And just here in our neighborhood, who could I say? They were all good to us, all of them. I couldn't pick out one over the other. They just were just good people, and it was a great place to live. And I feel the same thing about Buffalo. It's a great place to live.
Dimming of the light makes the picture clearer. It's just an old photo